Hey there guys, we're taking a look at Elden Ring running on the Lenovo Legion 5 with the RTX 2060 and the i7-10750H. Now I have to point out that all gameplay is captured using an external capture card hooked up to another PC. I have done this with every single one of my videos, but there are people that assume that this is recorded, you know, with like shadow play or whatever. And honestly, that's terrible. I don't know why people record like that. That is misleading information because that is going to affect the numbers here. This is through an external capture card, so no effect on the gameplay is done with the recording. And as you can see here, at the highest possible settings, the game looks really nice, but it performs terribly. The 1% lows are absolutely brutal. Now this boss, you're not really meant to fight them early on like this unless you're like a god at like these Soulsborne games, and I can promise you that is not who I am. But this boss is really great at pointing out the very clear issues that this game has. You know, it's very good at bringing out these stutters and really showing you how difficult it can be to play this at time. And I have done every optimization that I could find online on trying to fix the stuttering issues. There have been a lot of guides on places like Reddit that are meant to try to give you fixes. I can link some of the ones that I use down below. None of them really seem to do much of anything though. A lot of it just to me seems like pure copium. And while we're getting good averages for this being at the ultra settings, it's those 1% lows that really just drag everything down, and you see those frame time spikes that happen in certain situations that just make things difficult. You see the spikes that happen there. It's such an inconsistent experience that really the ultra settings is just out of the question. Dropping things down to high though. At the high settings, we retain a lot of the visual quality while getting a noticeable improvement in performance. Unfortunately, the game still seems to have issues with 1% lows here at the high settings instead of the ultra settings. So while the 1% lows do get improved, while in the fight with the boss here, you'll see that those usual stutters still come back. You see the spikes that happen in the frame times, and that's letting you know that things are kind of just fluctuating all over the place. It is certainly a noticeable improvement over the ultra settings though, because ultra was really bringing down those 1% lows. But here you could see that things are noticeably better, though still not perfect. But I would gladly take this over the experience at ultra, especially because visually we really didn't sacrifice much of anything. And overall, the 1% lows are still going to continue to perform badly, but that seems to be a very universal thing with the game. And you'll see that as we drop things down even further. Really, I feel like most people would probably just leave it like this and continue to play. But if you're a hardcore player of these types of games, I think this might get frustrating for you. But let me show you what medium is like. Really, the medium settings don't necessarily sacrifice too much visually. I feel like most of the time that you're going to be playing the game, you're really not going to think about the visuals here, and you're just going to focus more on the gameplay. And for the most part, it is a better experience, but there is still these occasional stutters. And I suspect that it might be something to do with the anti-cheat here. Instead of using the borderline non-existent anti-cheat that existed in Dark Souls before this, From Software this time around decided to implement easy anti-cheat. Now, easy anti-cheat is used by a lot of different companies, and it has weird levels of results. Some games will perform perfectly fine with it, others will be an absolute shit show, and this seems to be in that category. Because as you can see here, we are still getting those stutters. The 1% lows are still dropping into the 30 range, and that's pretty much telling us that there is something inherently wrong here that is causing these issues. Because I mean, you look at this, and does it really look that much better than Dark Souls 3, that much better than Sekiro? I really don't think so. It's certainly an improvement, but to cause this level of performance issues compared to the Dark Souls series and Sekiro makes me think that it has to be the anti-cheat that's causing issues here, especially because look at the GPU utilization. We're not even maxing out because the game has a 60 FPS cap, which means that the GPU is pretty much providing as many frames as it could possibly provide here, that it doesn't actually have to work itself 100%. So I'm guessing the anti-cheat, which runs on the CPU, is what's causing the issues here. So I'm going to show you what the absolute lowest settings are like. As you can see, we introduce some noticeable graphical issues because now we get shimmering shadows. So that's going to be extremely annoying to experience. And the 1% lows look good until again we start fighting the boss. And that's why I like fighting this boss, because it really starts to show you what the issues are like. Things will be perfectly fine for a little while, but then the stutters start to come back in. And this is telling me that there is something inherently wrong going going on here. 1% lows dropping into the 30s again is pretty much just telling me this game is struggling from something outside of just the graphics, because again, look at that GPU utilization. At this point, pretty much 30% of the GPU is just not doing anything. Now, is this an unplayable experience in general? I wouldn't really say it's unplayable, though I would not play the game at the lowest settings for sure. I think I would probably stick to higher medium, but overall, I think this game is in desperate need of some patches to fix the performance issues that are present in this game currently, because this stutter was not around in the other Souls games. And to think that this is going to be essentially the standard now is just sad to think about. I think that they really just need to rethink how their strategy with the anti-cheat is going to be here, because while the other Dark Souls games didn't exactly have the most functional anti-cheat, this just seems like it's sacrificing too much of the experience to provide the anti-cheat feature. That of course is if that's even the issue. That's kind of just my assumption. Outside of that, I can't really tell you what it could possibly be. But there is something fundamentally wrong here, because no matter what settings we set it to, we are getting 1% lows that are pretty much identical across the board. So there is no reason to play at the lowest settings. You can just go to medium or high and get about the same experience, which is both a good thing and a terrible thing. So let's hope that From Software doesn't take too long to actually release a fix to all of these issues. But anyways, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, be sure to subscribe and join the Discord down below. I will see you guys next time.